Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, guys, you know that this is one of my favorite spaces for us to be, and that is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things very expensive in my eyes. Time. What a precious commodity that has been offered to every mankind 24 hours a day. What we do with that 24 hours will tell me much about you. I'll let you know a couple of secrets. When I was younger, I didn't value time. But as I got older, I began to see who she is and understand the power that she is. And I began to partner with her, and she brought me and gave me much wisdom, knowledge, and stuff like that. So the other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It has created the individual that is before, and that is Diamond. And I want to thank her and honor her for bringing both of those precious commodities to spend with us for this moment that she's here, because we know the journey has deposited a couple of things in her, and we want to extract as much as we can from her those things that it has deposited in her: wisdom, knowledge, insights. And we want to get some access in there because why? It's going to help you and I to become better human spirits while we're here on this earth. Diamond, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
It's an honor. This is usually one of the very first questions that I ask an individual once they present at the show is, how do you serve mankind? And I ask that question because I tell them, I'm trying to educate my audience that we have two journeys: the independent journey and the interdependent journey. The interdependent journey is where we get a chance to serve each other. But one must, the prerequisite for this journey, you must have the, because when you're humbled and understand patience and all those things, you can then serve from that lens, if you will. So how do you serve mankind?
I love that question because it piggybacks off of a question that actually drives what I do in my business. So it's, how can I be of greatest service to the whole? And in order to show up fully for mankind, in order to show up fully for the collective, I first have to know who I am. I have to work on my shadows because one of the things that I've learned is that through doing the work myself, as you said, I discover insights, I discover practical tips and strategies that help me to guide other people who are going through those same things that I've been going down. So, in helping and doing personal development and all of the stuff that doesn't seem so fun on the outside, it actually lights me up because once I get on the other side of whatever it is, then I have insights that I can then give to the collective so that they can get through it as well.
Yes, excellent way to explain one's assignment. I always tell people that everyone that hit this planet came with an assignment. It is up to us to locate what that assignment is and to live from and through it. And life becomes different once we have located it and live and go through there. And one of the very first things that you have heard from Diamond, and for anyone that has gone through the journey, they are always and always will be their first client. And as they learn, they become familiar with the terrain, if you will, the forests, the dry areas, areas that are able to replenish you. And so that when you stand in their presence, they can locate you. As to when you're lost, they can locate you with a GPS, which is the questions that they will ask you. And that GPS will tell them where you're at. And so they'll be able to guide you out of that situation much faster. Find yourself a coach or a guide that has been through some stuff, as they say. So one of our customs that we've done here at Threads of Enlightenment is revisit through that beautiful power of the imagination to go back in time to revisit some of the spaces. I tell people that we reside for a few moments. The first is with the family. We are housed there for a few years. And then we began to move forward in life, if you will, to go and create our own world, as they say. And so we step out from under the wings of mom and dad and become my question to you is, how was your family? What was it like?
Ooh. So, my family was interesting. I mean, everyone's family is interesting, I feel like, in some way. But my mom was undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. And I grew up with her and my grandparents, her mom and dad. They had her when they were 40, I think. So my grandmother had two daughters, my aunt, who is now 80, and my mom, who I think is somewhere around like 55 now. And so
Uh,
we we were in and out of my grandparents' home. My mom would try and as you put it so beautifully, like go out into the world, and then sometimes we would have to come back with granny and granddad, and then she would go out and meet someone. I was actually removed from her care when I was 15 due to child abuse and neglect. So that put me in the child and family services ecosystem. I was a child of the state for a little bit. And the aforementioned aunt that I just spoke about, she actually went through the process of becoming a kinship care guardian.
hmm Yeah.
So she actually brought me in. I was living in a group home at the time, and it was not ideal. And she saw how unhappy I was, so she took the parenting classes. She got all of the certifications, got the home inspection, and I went to go live with her until they found my dad. And so once they found him, I went to go live with him for a couple of years for my junior and senior year of high school, which was interesting. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
and now I have my own family. I have a little person and my partner now. So um, that's kind of them. And it's crazy because I grew up an only child with my mom, and when I went to live with my dad, I became a middle child of five. So
Wow.
I had a young, at the time she was like 3 or 4. I had a half sister. I had another half sister who was closer to my age. She was like 14 or something like that. Then it
hmm
was me. And then I had a stepsister because he had married. And then I had my older brother who was like 30.
Wow. After all of that, which is a rough start, if you will, and you were transposed into this family that have all of these other siblings that you're meeting for the first time. How did you assimilate into that, being accustomed to being the only child, estranged from mom and placed into a system? How did you emotionally handle relationships at that age, walking into a room full of siblings?
Yeah. Um, it was one of those things where so my mom and dad, they split pretty early on, but apparently he was there for like or trying to be there for like the first 2 years of my life. So he knew my birthday and everything. And so my siblings knew about me. I just didn't know about them. So
Mhm.
every year he would like celebrate my birthday, even though I wasn't there.
Wow.
So when I went to go live with them, it was almost like what's the phrase? The prodigal daughter returns or
Yeah,
something like
prodigal. Yeah.
that. so so it was more of an adjustment for me than it was for them. But to answer that question, how did I handle relationships? It's still something that I'm working on now because I had experienced so much like disconnection from my family, from having to switch schools, moving around in the system. Like it was one of those things where I started to develop this protection mechanism that before anyone could hurt me again or reject me again, like I would just close myself off or I would separate myself. It's only through my partner now that I realized that that's kind of what I was doing because we've known each other for 10 years now. And it still surprises me sometimes that he's still around because I'm like, I really tried to get rid of you. And you just kind of stuck around.
Oh, my fiance and I have that those conversation all the time. I'm like, can't believe you're still here,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And She's priceless about that. But anyway, here you are because the reason why I asked that question is that you were separated, you by yourself, and what a testament to your dad. I want to stop and acknowledge that is a powerful testament that your dad, even though he was away from you, he kept celebrating you while you were still not there. That is a powerful imagery to have, and the fact that even your siblings that you had no knowledge of, but yet they knew you, celebrated you while you had no knowledge of what was going on, and you are dealing with all of your traumas and your, separation anxiety and abandonment issues and so forth. And here's a unknown family celebrating you. And so that's why I had asked, because you're walking into something like that, but with that additional information that you laid out there, how did the prodigal daughter accept all of that type of adulation in a way where they knew you, but you knew nothing, and yet they were actually, honestly, Diamond, celebrating you for years?
It was interesting. So, my father, he has four different mothers of his children.
Hmm.
So it was one of those. Wait, no, is it three? Because Skylar, yeah, three. No, wait, including me. No, four. I was, it's like right. My stepsister was from my stepmom's previous marriage. So it was one of those things where because they had different mothers, there were only three of us that lived in the house together. My brother was like in the basement. He was working, trying to get a place on his own. My stepsister, interestingly enough, was the person I clicked with the most because
Yeah.
she and we felt like the most alike. She was a little bit older than me, so I looked up to her. Second youngest half sister, she wasn't in the home with us, and she had done something pretty early on in like me coming back into the fold that made me be like, I'm okay. I don't need to really talk to you. But my youngest sister, the three, she was three or four, I don't remember now, but she was a trigger for me because I never really got to, like, she had a whole playroom. Like, it was like I never really got the things that she did,
Yeah.
having been, a product of a marriage to someone. And I realized that, that wasn't her fault. That wasn't my dad's fault. Like, it was on my mom. She kept me away, but it still didn't hurt less. So I really didn't. I also don't really like children. Like, I love my child. I don't
Hmm.
always like some of the things that she does.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to that point of maturity where we can have like conversations that I want to have. But it was one of those things where I already didn't like being around little people. And here's this little person who pretty much is getting the childhood that I never had with my dad. And it was like, it was very much an adjustment. And so like I never really was one to babysit her. And sometimes that rubbed the other people in the house the wrong way because it was an energy that was felt that I didn't necessarily like her. I mean,
Yeah.
we're okay now. She's a teenager now, so she doesn't really like anyone right now, but it's a better dynamic now for sure. But going into that space, it was an adjustment, and a lot of the times I spent time in my room. That was when I had my first Netflix account. My dad made
Yeah.
me my own account, and that was where I was in my room on Netflix. I made friends when I was with my mom because of some of like the controlling mechanisms. I was never really allowed to have friends.
Mhm.
So when I had the opportunities with my dad I'm in Maryland, so we would go to downtown Silver Spring and just kind of hang out and be at the mall or, whatever. Like I would take advantage of those opportunities.
As you are being exposed to these new opportunities, as you stated, how did it begin to affect you? Because again, it has to start getting in there somehow. You said you related to your siblings, the youngest. You had like a kind of a shock to your system dealing with that. How did you grow in that space now? It's a new location, new opportunities for friends and stuff like that. Um, we know the internal struggle within the house, but what was happening with the internal struggle within you?
Yeah. Um, so I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 when I was 14. So a lot of that time, um, yeah, a lot of that time was spent in the dark. I loved going to school because it put me around people who, like, that was a dynamic that I was used to. I wasn't used to a family dynamic that, like, tried to go out to dinners together or, like, wanted to go on family vacations and do things. Like, we did it, but, like, I wasn't used to it. And there was always a part of me that didn't trust it. Like, my dad would say,
Mm,
like, no matter what, I'm always going to be here, like, now that you're here. But there was always a part of me and was like, nah, because if I mess up enough, you're probably just going to, like, toss me to the side. And so never really feeling like safe, really. It was a dark time. Like, I look back on some of my pictures from that time, and I very much embrace the whole goth theme because it comforted me. It made me interesting to people. Like, it created this, and it's funny now that I know about my aura now, like, I didn't have to do anything extra to, like, create that, like, oh, what's that about? Like, it was already there, but, like,
yeah,
very much like the black hair, black eyeliner, just dressing in all black. Just, if you're gonna get past this to get to know me, then, like, I'll see what you're talking about. But it was very much like guards up. I wrote a lot of poetry during that time. I loved art class. I've always been a creative, but a lot of my art was dark. I remember one of the assignments that we did, we had to come up with our own alphabet. And my whole alphabet, like, the R was like the scythe that the Reaper carried. Like, it was like a theme. And it was definitely something that, like, despite all of my walls, I knew that education was the thing that was gonna get me out of it. So that
mm,
was where I put a lot of my focus. So even though I was up in my room and I was watching Netflix, I was the only one in that house who self-imposed a bedtime. Like, I was
wow.
in bed because I knew I wanted to get up the next day so that I could take my classes seriously and do all the things. And, like, it was an interesting balance for me. I mean, I got through it, but it was interesting. I had a lot of walls up for sure.
And as you stated, you were the one that had set up a bedtime, imposed bedtime, because you wanted to perform well in school. And you mentioned also that you were in this dark space. As you are moving through life going on, you're in school and with the gaunt look and all of that, as you're moving closer to adulthood, if you will, how did you begin to look at the world as you're heading towards that arena? Because when you're going there, you're looking at professional life, you're looking at graduating from school, all this type of stuff. Um, what? Let's talk about your school first. What field did you pick to study, and why did you pick that field?
Yeah, so I ended up not going to university right after I graduated high school. I went into the Air Force for a little bit.
Hmm.
And so I got a bunch of credits and things that didn't really go towards anything. But when I was a little bit older and I got to choose, I chose to pursue my degree in visual communications with a concentration in graphic design. Because, like I said, art has always been something that has called to me. And I knew that graphic design was probably my best bet because the only thing that I knew about, like, the other artists who paint and do, like, mixed media, like, there's always, like, that word in front of artists when I think of those people, and it's like starving artists. Like, they gonna go, and I'm like, I don't want to do that, but, like, if I do some stuff on a computer, apparently people don't have those skills. So that's what I that's what I got my degree.
And when you went into the military, how did the military, because the military and Gothic girl don't
Yeah.
don't mesh, if you will, because you have to come under their guidance, or as I would put it gently? And how were you able to fit into that? Because again, the goth lifestyle is a totally different mindset than heading into the military.
Yeah. So I graduated high school when I was 17. My dad and I had ended up having a falling out, and I went to go live with my aunt for a little bit. And that was one of the reasons why I had joined the military, because I was like, okay, well, society says you go to school so you can get good grades, so you can get into a good college, university. And if I don't have the money to pay for that, then how am I going to pay for school? So I
Yeah.
chose to enlist in the military as a means to get an education while also making possibly a career. That didn't end up happening. But because I was 17 when I graduated, I had to wait until I was 18 without parent,
Parents' signature.
guardian. Yeah. So I ended up working for Aldo, the shoe store, in a mall and I also worked at Chipotle for a little bit, which is where I met my partner. And when I worked for Aldo, the goth thing didn't really go there either.
Hmm.
I got one claim to fame when we got to dress up for Halloween. I was working on Halloween, and so I got to like put on the full
Yeah.
what was I as a zombie schoolgirl is what I went as. But in the Aldo environment, it's very much like fashion forward, very trendy. So my style switched up after I graduated because it had to, I guess, in a way. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it didn't, but at the time I thought it had to. So I had already kind of moved away. And
Hmm.
so, when you're in the military, they give you uniforms, and in basic, there's no makeup. So
Yeah.
your face is what it is. You wear what they give you. And it was very much, all right, I'll make the best out of this.
Okay. And once you graduated and you came out and you went into school and you got your degree, where did you end up? What was your first job like as for once you got everything that you think you needed for a successful life?
Those pieces came together slowly. So, as I mentioned, I wasn't in the military long. My depression actually got in the way of me fulfilling my first contract. I was early separated. So, that put me in a place where my plan didn't work. So, I was
Yeah.
back at, okay, now what do I do? And so, I did a lot of when I first got out of the military, my aunt, she worked for property management places, and
Hmm.
was she the general manager at that time? I don't think so. I think she had moved into another role, but she got me a position as a front desk person when I first got
Yeah.
out. So I did that for a while. Didn't really like it. I was overnight. I did the graveyard shift,
Hmm.
and that wasn't really something that was likable for my circadian rhythm and all the things. So I ended up stepping away from that position. I did temp work for a while, which that did not help my depression because, as you know, as if you're a temp, a lot of times you're on call, and if you don't have a contract, you're not
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
So if I'm not working, I'm not making money. And in order to succeed in life, according to society, you need money to survive and be free. So it really sent me into this like downward spiral of depression where I was literally just binging movies all day. And one of the movies that I had watched was Pain and Gain with Matt Damon and The Rock. And the beginning of that movie, Matt Damon's talking about how much he loves his job because he can wear sweatpants and he just walks around the gym and just tells people, you're looking great, you're doing great, like even if they're not.
Yeah.
And that kind of sparked something in me. It was like, I'm wearing sweatpants anyway. I can tell people they're doing a great job. So I applied to a couple of different gym positions, and I ended up getting into Washington Sports Club as a front desk associate. And once I was there, I have this thing in me where like, and I know this now from my gene keys, I thrive best in a position of leadership or influence, which is not necessarily a front desk person.
Hmm.
So I immediately started to figure out how I can like rise up in the company. And it gave me something to work towards versus just being at home depressed, watching movies all day. So I was at that company for 3 years. And in that time, I worked my way up to general manager. That I had started being a general manager of my own location was also the year that I started school. So it was in 2019. So I didn't actually, because I was in my head, I was like, what do I really want to do? I knew I wanted to be creative, but I didn't know if that was practical enough. And since I was going to be paying for it on my own, I was like, I really want to make sure that whatever I pursue a degree in is something that I actually want to do that's going to have like fruitful outcomes. My location ended up shutting down because the company lost its lease and I lost my job. And unemployment was not enough to take care of. I had just moved, like literally the day that I got the call that I had no longer had a job. I was with boxes in my hand, unpacking my U-Haul for the first 2-bedroom apartment that I had ever like signed a lease for in life. With my daughter. And so I had to very quickly figure out, okay, I thought I was going to have this salary. I thought I was going to have these things. And so around that time, I was getting sick and tired of putting my financial future into the hands of people that I never even laid eyes on. So I considered getting another job. I didn't have the energy for interviews. So I ended up getting like a part-time gig just to like tie me over. I got like trained to be one of those people who inspects houses for like insurance companies to see if like you have risk and things. So like even now, sometimes I'll look at a backyard, I'm like, risk. Is that I'm like your roof? Risk. But it was through the freedom that I had in that position, because I could kind of make my own schedule. I decided that I was going to try my hand at entrepreneurship. And that's what kind of began my entrepreneurship journey, which I was still in school during that time.
You got dealt a tough hand, if you will. What did it begin to do to your depression? How did you handle it at that time?
Yeah, the depression wasn't great, but it was one of those things where I couldn't give up because I had another soul relying on me. So even though there were some days where I just wanted to lay on the floor and literally look at the floor and do nothing, I would only give myself like 5 minutes. Like, okay, you can lay here and do nothing for 5 minutes. And then you got to get up and you got to do something else. You have to get out of it. I used to have this quote wall in my apartment that had a bunch of like, happiness isn't a destination. It's a process, like all of the things, feel the fear, do it anyway, all of the things. And those helped during that time. But the one thing that really helped me the most was in August of 2022, I participated in a clinical trial that tested the efficacy of psilocybin, which is the active component in magic mushrooms, on people who had bipolar 2 treatment-resistant depression. And that trial actually healed my depression. So it was a very powerful experience.
That's awesome. It's always good when someone has gone through that and come and overcome it, and however we get there, because the science is out there, and plant-based medicine is some of the best things. Pharmaceutical is plant-based medicine. They just took it and break it down to a molecule and then extract it and turn it. And then they tell you, don't go to the plant-based medicine. And yet they got their stuff derive their stuff from the plant-based medicine. So yeah, it's just these guys. And I keep telling people, healthcare, it's called the business of healthcare. It's not called healthcare. And so when you realize that it is a business, then you should begin to approach healthcare differently, if you will, because I came out of that system. So here you are, you have a new lease on life with the depression being extracted out of your life, and you're starting the entrepreneur mindset and all of that comes with being an entrepreneur. As you grew as an individual, first of all, what did that do? Where the depression, how did you feel when it was no longer part of your being? How did you interact with others?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the trial happened about 2 years into my entrepreneurship journey, and I was running two businesses at the time. I was in school and I was a mom. And one of the things that I like to say the trial gave me was it gave me empathy and self-compassion for myself, but
Hmm.
definitely for other people. I realized that a lot of the things that I was irritated by in other people, they were things that were just triggered inside of me because
Yeah.
of whatever trauma that I was having. And so because I was starting to develop empathy for myself, it also helped me like understand other people. Like my partner and I have this joke now. Whenever we're in traffic, I'm like, it's probably because there's a lane ending or there's a place where someone has to like yield or merge, and whoever is in that lane doesn't want to let people in. And so people are like dodging the lane. And I don't even like, we'll be in an area where I don't even know that for certain, but I'm like, most likely because people's egos are in the way all the time. And sure enough, when we get past like the traffic patch, it's like the lane was ending, there's a yield, there's like, because people just, they don't have that compassion anymore. They don't have they like it's all about like me. And so like I see things like that and I try to be a more compassionate driver. If I see, Johnny Speedway riding down the shoulder cuz apparently he needs to get to wherever he's going,
Hmm.
faster than everyone else, I'm not going to like try and cause an accident and be like, "No, you can't get in." I used to, but now I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Like, apparently, where you need to go is more important than the rest of us. Sure.
And as you began to deal with all of the traumas, what were some of the tools that you brought into your life, Diamond, to assist you moving through the trauma? We know that the trial drug helped you deal with a major depression that has been a part of your life and your family's lineage through your mom. Um, and here you are now with this new awareness of who you are and empathy and all of these different deep things that one is learning about himself. How did you begin to go in deeper and start looking to find whatever else was there? What tools did you bring along to help you to manage it and exit that particular emotion?
Yeah. So after the trial, I started to microdose because the trial was a hero dose, so that's like 5 grams or more. About I want to say it was like a month after the trial was over, I started to microdose with psilocybin because I acknowledged the benefits, especially during the luteal phase of my like women's cycles, the time where I'm more tired, I'm more irritable anyway because of
Yeah.
hormones. So I started microdosing not too long after the trial, which helped. I had started reading a lot more. So at first it was books on my relationship, because even
Hmm.
though my partner and I have been together for, I mean, it was on and off, but we've had some trust issues in our relationship. So for a lot of the books that I was reading, it was there's this one book, it was called The Breakup Boot Camp by like
Hmm.
Amy Chen, I think. And even though it's titled Breakup Boot Camp, it's not about getting over the other person. It's about learning why your brain craves like whatever attention, or why some people will text their ex just to pick a fight just so they can get that oxytocin hit. So it,
Yeah.
it was called the Breakup Boot Camp, but it taught you the reasons scientifically why your brain was doing certain things. That was helpful for me. A lot of knowledge. I want to say meditation, but that really hasn't, like, meditation has always been something that I've tried and it's kind of
Hmm.
eluded me until recently, but I feel like that was somewhere in the mix. So the trial was in August of 2022, and in October of 23, so last year, that was when I found the modalities that I use now in my business, Human Design and Gene Keys. And those are like the ones that help me the most. Like, so they opened my mind. Like, first, psilocybin opened my mind. It was definitely a spiritual awakening. I can't take credit for that catalyst moment. And yeah. So it was a combination of that, but it often, and I say this all the time, I'm like, it oftentimes, now that I have these tools, it feels like I was just floundering
Yeah.
for for like, okay, so the trial's over. I gotta figure out how to like keep this going and keep doing the deeper work. And I really don't know
Hmm.
where. But one of the things that the trial had showed me was that I was doing too much. So I had closed down my first business. I started focusing on my second business, which was all service based, and it was online. And so most of what I was dealing with was imposter syndrome, because even though I had built a successful product based business, it felt like none of those skills applied to the service based model. And it was just
Yeah.
like, why do I feel like a noob? So a lot of the research that I was doing, learning how the brain worked, getting into some of Joe Dispenza's work, like that was all because I was like, how do I make my brain like
Yeah.
see that this is good for me? Like it can be. And so at a time where I was trying to figure out what my business superpower was, someone asked me what my energy type was. And I had no idea what she was talking about, but she sent me a calculator, and I went down this rabbit hole that is human design. And everything that I was learning about myself through human design, it just validated and confirmed so many things. Like it explained why I have these doubts about myself, why I
Yeah.
have, you know, why I had imposter syndrome, why I was stuck in comparison. And it gave me a different lens to look at people through. I've always wanted to take like a business psychology class, but once I had graduated, I had to go back and take like Psych 1, and then I could take the business psychology class. And I was like, I am done with school for right now. I do not want to go back and take a class just so I could take another class. Like, I don't want to do that. But human design gives me that knowledge without having gone through like a psych degree or anything like that, because it actually helps you understand people's strengths. It helps you understand where people may be more likely to lean into conditioning. And then
Hmm.
Gene Keys, that's all about like transforming your shadows into gifts.
Yeah.
So in areas of my life where I don't know what I was thinking was happening, but I was being in this place of like external fixation. And
Hmm.
so it was it was already this journey of moving towards internal groundedness.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the language to know that that was what was going on until I found these tools. So those have really been like the biggest, like the three biggest things has been like microdosing, it's been human design, and it's been Gene Keys that have given me the language to help me understand some of the things that are going on.
Yeah. Dr. Joe Dispenza is still one of my go-to guys to kind of always center myself when I feel a little off key, if you will. And his
Yeah.
product and his knowledge and insight. Anyone that doesn't know about him, go find it, and you will see it can change your life.
Yeah.
So he's a great individual to listen to, and there's so many others out there. So here you are, Diamond. Talk to us. Here I am. I'm a new client, if you will, because I want the audience to get an understanding and feel of how you work and what you do when they present, and how you can guide them through their pain and their we call it traumas, those little areas that just keeps us plugged in. You had mentioned some things about that boot camp book. One
Hmm.
of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that they can be hooked on chemical high within the body. That can show up in depression, anxiety. They're just hooked on that high, and it's familiar to them when whatever trauma caused it. And they have to learn to recognize that they're hooked on it. Many people don't even know that they are. And once you recognize that it is can be hooked as like a drug form, and realize that you're jonesing for it, in other words, you need to get some help, because just like any other chemical substance abuse, you have a chemical substance abuse. So I just want to make people aware of that as well. So talk to us about your modality. How is it? I'm your first client. I got in touch with you. I heard you and Ken talking on the podcast. I dial into you as far as the email. What's the process, if you will, once I've arrived in your space so that you can guide me within those gifts that you have?
Absolutely. So I am currently in the middle of rebranding my website so that it reads very much like a love letter to a friend, because that's
Yeah.
the vibe that I want to create. Last year, when I was really heavily focused on like the business and mindset coaching, like I was like, are you a, speaker, author, entrepreneur? And I realized that so many more people, like so many people can benefit from this work. Like I took myself to a CEO lunch a couple months ago, and I love my waitress's energy so much. I was like, do you know your time of birth? Can I look at your energy? And even helping her understand like some of her energy. So it made me realize like I attract a certain type of person, not just entrepreneurs. And so lately I've been talking a lot about my experience with my mental health. So I'm starting to create offerings that, yes, if you want the business piece, there are things for that, but I'm starting to create offerings that really resonate with people and meet them where they are in terms of their mental health. So I have this, well, first, it starts with on the website, there is a free human design chart pool. So the only three things that a person needs are their date of birth, their time of birth, and their place of birth. And it will pull their custom human design chart. And it'll give them little blurbs about what each of the things mean. And that's important.
Yeah.
Because when I pulled my chart, I did it on a calculator that did not do that. And I had to go to YouTube University and watch 10-minute long videos about each of the things that I was pulling.
Yeah.
And not everyone has that kind of time.
Yeah.
So on my chart calculator, you can actually see like mini blurbs of like what each of the main things mean, your strategy, your type, your authority, your profile. And then at the bottom, there's even a free ebook that they can download called Improve Your Health by Design. So it gives them practical strategies on like how they sleep best, how they handle overwhelm and pressure, and how their immune system was designed. So it starts there. From there, because I know not a lot of people will just be like, oh yeah, I heard her on this podcast. Let me hop into this reading.
Yeah.
So once they pull their chart, I am creating a sequence that will send them like one of the masterclass videos that I did, explaining a little bit more of like some of the different things of human design all in one place. They'll also get like a free ebook that I created in Adobe that like explains in further detail, so they can say like, oh, I'm a generator, I have emotional authority, and they can like, I think it's like 15 pages. It's a short ebook. They can like flip through and they can literally, it's called Decode Your Design. They can decode their design by doing that. And then once they have like a baseline understanding of at least their strategy and authority, then they can start experimenting with it. They can start recognizing synergies and things like that, that if they listen to, like, for example, if they're a generator, if they listen to that sacral response of like, I really like this. I have the energy for this. And honoring their no when the sacral says, no, instead of like shooting themselves, like I'll use a family reunion or something for an example. It's like, I really don't want to go to that. But then you get into, but I should, because we really don't do this often. And then we get to the whole thing where it's the day of and you're like, why did I say yes to this again? And then it's just not energetically a match. So they can start experimenting with their strategy and authority before they even like hop on a call to learn more. Through that sequence, I will be encouraging them to experiment with the strategy authority. I will be encouraging them with different tips and strategies of how I've used my strategy and authority and how it has literally changed my business and the way that I feel in my body and in my business. And then it'll encourage them to do, depending on where they land, it'll encourage them to either do the understand and master your energy reading, or it'll encourage them to do the is plant medicine right for me? So the difference is in understand and master your energy. It's all about their energy type, strategy, and authority. And then we get into what they're here to learn, what they're here to do, what deeply fulfills them, and what their purpose here is in this lifetime. So it gets into their incarnation cross a little bit. And is plant medicine right for me? That one is more of like, I'm not a doctor, but for lack of better phrasing, it's like a mental health consultation where we talk about some of the things that they've experienced in their mental health journey. We talk about some of the things that they've tried, because I have my medical marijuana card. I had that before the trial. And part of the criteria for getting that is having been on a bunch of different medications to help with my depression that did not work. So talking about, some of the medications that they've been on, has it worked? Have you ever tried plant medicine? Is it something that you're open to? Because not everyone is open to it. So doing like a mini powwow on that, and then getting them some insights and practical tips for like their specific energy type and things like that. So that's kind of like someone new. There's a lot of nurturing involved. There's a lot of experimentation with them learning more about themselves and their energy so that they can really show up in a place where, because like I love talking about the basics of human design. However, I think that the true power lies in learning about your gifts, learning about the strengths and things that your soul chose in this lifetime to be successful. So how do you use your strategy and authority and your gifts to really step into who you were designed to be in this lifetime?
That is powerful. Guys, we're going to provide everything for you, all the links for you to get to her. Those of you who have heard what she said and you're curious about it, give her a call, get into that email, and she will get back to you. And if you know someone that you think can use the help, and you have been with them and you've seen their pain, and they may have mentioned to you that they're tired and they're giving up and so forth, you give her a call, touch base with her, and offer that services to them. Diamond, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a good one.
I am so appreciative. You asked such great questions. I don't think I've ever talked about, like I kind of breezed past what happened with my mom and my family, but I don't think I've ever stated that I was a middle child of 5 or anything like that outside of like one-off Zoom calls. So I'm appreciative of this deeper dive that we did today.
Thank you. I told you about my assignments when we started, that my assignment is twofold. So I guess I've accomplished both of them. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.